brilliant move of LeBron's many moves here in Los Angeles. I love. This is the Indiana Pacer fan in me.
Yeah.
We had Larry Bird as the head coach, and Rick Carlisle and Dick Harter were the assistant coaches, and they coached the team. And Larry Bird coached the attitudes and the emotions of the team, and it worked tremendously. 3 straight Eastern Conference Finals, 1 NBA Finals appearance. Rick Carlisle was masterful. Dick Harter was masterful. I love pairing Ty Lue with a hardcore defensive X and O's guy like Tom Thibodeau. This is a great move, in my opinion.
And I can see how this move can go bad and be disastrous quickly. I understand what you're saying, but I'm going to flip that coin and realize that you can't serve 2 gods. So think about this roster construction. Are you trying to develop the young core, or are you trying to win now because of LeBron and his birth certificate? And that's been the issue with the Lakers. That's in part why they have the worst record in the NBA in the last 6 years. The worst team in the NBA has been the Lakers. Teams have tanked, went through process, and are now in the playoffs while the Lakers still continue to be out of the playoffs. So when you bring in Tom Thibodeau to support a Ty Lue, what is Ty Lue there to do if he's not in fullness the head coach? Does he have final say? Is he just in charge of LeBron, or is he in charge of the young core and developing in that? If they're not on the same page, I don't see how this can work, because this roster construction is different than a veteran-laced Ty Lue team that he was used to in Cleveland. I think they're divided right now. Choose your course and then the actions of that course.
The dynamic of Ty Lue with Tom Thibodeau works in that you have the good cop, the bad cop. It's the same as Doc Rivers being with Tom Thibodeau in Boston. So from that standpoint, and let's be honest, this is the only kind of job that Tibbs is going to get moving forward. He's not going to get another head coaching job. He was given everything you could possibly ask for in Minnesota, and it was a disaster. So this is a great way for him to rehab his image. To your point, this is where I struggle, is he was supposed to come in and coach up those young guys in Minnesota, especially defensively. You'd be asking him to do the same in this situation. Now, not being the head coach does take a little bit of the sizzle out of whatever he's saying, but nonetheless, he wasn't able to do that. And ultimately, that's what you have to do. I agree with you. The dynamic with the Pacers was perfect, but you had a veteran team. You had the Davis big men. You had Reggie. You had Mark Jackson. You had Austin Crochet. You had guys that were willing to do what you asked them to do. I'm not feeling that from this Lakers team at this point.
In Minnesota, Thibodeau had 2 titles, right?
Yes.
What were they?
He was head coach and team president.
Okay, so the dynamics were different in how he handled the players. See, Tibbs was my assistant coach in Houston. As an assistant, totally different. A little bit more laid back, easier to talk to. The communication skills were there. He really dug into getting to know the players and also the personalities, spending time as an assistant, which is different than what the challenge was at Minnesota because of those 2 positions. So I do believe that when you get a Ty Lue and a Thibodeau there, Tibbs' outlook is so different than what it was before. He can go back to being the guy he was. He's still hardcore, but he's a guy that can communicate a lot better on the level of even if they're young, because I think guys will respect that a little bit more because Tibbs understands defense. He understands what it means to be, time and score and how to be in the right place at the right time and to get the guys to understand how the connectivity. That's why I say it's different now, and I played for him. And I know it, and I loved him as a defensive coach, as an assistant coach. I always thought he would struggle as a head coach because of that communication.
Yeah, but as a veteran, you bought in.
Oh, no, I bought in, but it was how he did it. He wasn't, like when we saw him as a head coach in Chicago, Minnesota, it was just like this, okay? But as an assistant coach, the pressure wasn't on him to be able to do that. So his demeanor was totally different.
Rick, look, I think it's no different than looking at Doc Rivers when he was carrying both titles, president and head coach, and they finally slapped him back down to his level of competence, head coach, and now he's a brilliant head coach again. He's in the lane where he fits.
Yep.
Tom Thibodeau, a great in football coordinator, got elevated to head coach, and it was too much for him. Overpay him to be the assistant here, satisfy him financially, the Lakers, and a lot of credit if he can get LeBron James and this team elevated to a level defensive. I mean, remember what a nightmare it was defensively for the Lakers. If he can elevate them defensively when LeBron's there and on the court, he'll get a lot of credit.
I like it for Tibbs. And by it's Tibbs and Thibodeau. I always get that.
Yeah, right.
I like it for Tibbs. And for the options that the Lakers have, and with Ty Lue, I'm good with that. It's a matter of what your expectation is that it's going to deliver. Is this going to be, is it going to take it to where the Pacers were? I don't think it's enough.
LeBron is here next year to win a championship. Trust me.
Oh, well,
that's the only target on his board.
Well, they're not going to do that.
I know.
It's just like that's not even within reason. Like
he thinks they're going to get a player in here, and him and a player and these young guys and the right coaching will be right. He's looking at Portland right now, look like a real threat. He's looking at Golden State fall apart, and LeBron James is convinced. You get me one player and the right coaches, we'll be right there with any of these guys next year.
Look, if they get the if factor is just, we're way out of our universe right now. But if they get the right player and everything works together, because they do have talent in this roster, I absolutely agree with that. But I've always seen and through experience that when my coordinator, assistant coach is hardcore, but my head coach is kind of, player friendly, you take a lot of sting out of what you're saying because I know where the buck stops, and it doesn't stop with you. You're not going to affect my playing time to the point where the head coach is going to sit there and say, yeah, I listen to you. So Tibbs, what is the leash Tibbs is going to be given with this young core? And remember, they've went through so many different changes and styles and superstars. Some of these guys were there with Kobe Bryant, and now they're with LeBron. It's kind of white noise at this point. If the guy's going to do it, they're going to do it. If they're not, they're not. I don't know how much Tibbs is getting out of these guys.